For years, you've been told that either that TV is dying and streaming on demand is the future, or that TV and streaming will somehow merge and eventually the television business will just transform itself somehow and eventually they will survive. Both are wrong. TV is already dead. It's just that we still haven't found the decency within us to sign the death certificate and just simply move on. Let's explore. Hello everyone and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. So, I was taking a walk down the park trying to find some coffee for the early morning, and it just occurred to me that TV is dead. It's probably been dead for at least a year, maybe two already, and the latest piece of mass insanity, otherwise known as the so-called pandemic, may have been the final nail in the coffin, but it's definitely not what killed TV. But it's dead. I mean, it's no longer just dying. I mean, the talk about TV being dying, TV dying, or in the process of being out of the picture, the idea has been around for more than 15 years, dare I say even more than 20 years. But I think the process is already over. For all intents and purposes, TV is dead. Now, how did that occur to me? Well, as some of you may already know, or in fact everyone should know, because I published a video from there. I spent a few days in Hungary visiting a few friends, meeting with some other people, making new friends, hopefully, inshallah. And obviously I had to sleep somewhere. And the place I slept in had a TV set in the room. And just as every time is the case whenever I go to Hungary, the TV set has available around 100, 120 TV channels, of which usually 100% or very close to 100% of them are dubbed in Hungarian. Hungary being one of those countries that utterly despises subtitles, making life difficult for basically everyone else that happens to be visiting. The problem is that the person I was traveling with doesn't understand a single word in Hungarian, so the solution was to spend a lot of time in the evenings while, I don't know, taking a shower, eating up some improvised dinner and waiting to fall asleep. Spend a lot of time on the only two TV channels available that were not dubbed in Hungarian, namely the British Brainwash Corporation and CNN. And this has occurred gradually, but I have never seen something so terrible as what I have seen over the last week of July, because I basically tuned into BBC and CNN every evening for 10 nights in a row. So I think I have a decent idea. Most media studies usually involve 5 or 6 consecutive days at a particular time slot in order to start arriving to various conclusions about the programming of that. So me with basically double than that, I would say that the conclusions are, if not relevant or definitive, at the very least pertinent to what I'm about to say. So I haven't seen anything so terrible as what I have witnessed on the BBC World Service and on CNN. Now, you see, these two TV stations, which are indeed a microcosm of general trends on TV, let's face it, yeah, sure, there are still a few that are slightly better than these two, and I admit CNN and BBC are probably the worst examples, But who's to say that France 24 is significantly better, or Sveriges Television, or NRK, or whatever? Most kind of go in the same direction. So, okay, maybe not everywhere is TV dead already. It's just getting there very, very fast. When I say that I have never seen something so terrible, is what I mean by that is that, let's say 5 years ago or 6 years ago, when I was in a very similar situation, usually CNN would, or BBC for that matter, would present news that was irrelevant for yours truly. Now, piece of news that I didn't care about. But there were definitely hundreds of millions or even over a billion people out there who did care about those particular stories. This time around, the same two TV stations basically said nothing of relevance for nearly everyone. Let me put it this way. Who cares about the Women's World Cup? Every single night, both TV stations dedicated hours and hours on end about the Women's World Cup. The final of that tournament, which took place after I left Hungary, had fewer people watching it than a regular league match in Spain. Men's football, which is actually a sport, as opposed to women's football, which is not. That's one aspect. Second aspect. Inside England, I mean, let's say, okay, fine, CNN did that because, the US women's national football squad was actually quite good by women's standards, which is to say that they would barely scrap to survive in the third tier of Kazakhstan. But anyway, okay, fine. But, BBC spent almost the same amount of time talking about women's football, even though fewer people watched the final of that tournament in England and Scotland than a regular League Two. Second league, I don't know, but the second division of men's football. So, there are more people who care what happens to Watford or, I don't know, some other second division squad in England than they care about the World Cup final of women's football. That's how important that topic was. Yet BBC World Service spent an inordinate amount of time on that topic. Now, of course, some of that is being excused by various people that, okay, it's August, it's a slow news, it's a perpetual slow news days, effectively. But, other things have happened at the same time. But with the exception of the coup d'etat in Niger, all the other relevant topics over the last month or so were simply ignored. In order to focus more or less on eco-Marxist propaganda. I mean, I heard everything there was to know about the ULEZ rules around London, as if the entirety of Britain is just London, and about women's football, and that's it. Nothing else. Even Euronews had slightly more diverse crop of news, although Euronews was dubbed in Hungarian, so there was that. The point I'm trying to make here is that format of television is dead. It's not dying, it's dead. None of it is profitable, and even BBC, which has attempted for decades, well, dare I say almost 100 years now, to force people to pay for it, even that one is no longer able to stay in the black, so to speak. CNN has changed ownership several times already, and it's still not profitable with all of the firings and all of the clampdown on various waste, and it still doesn't work. Nobody cares. It's just dead. And the only thing that hasn't happened yet is the decency to write the death certificate. How about the argument that it will merge with streaming? Well, I was reading this morning this article from Ars Technica, which said that, oh no, streaming is bad too, and it's full of ads, and it's not significantly better than old cable and whatnot. Yeah, that's true. All of that is true. And TV merging with streaming will still not stop the fundamental problem. And the fundamental problem is that TV, the way we know it today, we still know it today, is a bankrupting type of model. It's just dead because it's bad. And the only reason it has withstood and it has existed for so long is that it appeared, commercial television, the way we know it, appeared exactly slightly before, a generation before mass internet, but just after radio. So it looked like a positive extension of radio. And for a short little while, one of the most effective ways of broadcasting your information about your business, otherwise known as ads, was to pay ridiculous amounts of money to talking heads on TV. That's why commercial television was viable for a short while, historically speaking. At this point, this is no longer true. Today, if you want to advertise for your own business, there are, without exaggeration, tens of thousands of options, none of them involving TV, none of them involving giving money to those talking heads. As a result, each TV station tries to keep its captive audience and tries to delay the moment when they have to sign their death certificate, essentially. That's why this is happening pretty much everywhere. I mean, regardless of the laws governing television in any country, most TV stations at this point have a significant portion of their budget tied to Big Pharma, because Big Pharma likes to advertise to old people, because old people tend to be more hypochondriacs because death is closer to them. And that's why nothing is in the news, essentially. Because anything relevant is bound to piss off one of the few advertisers that are still willing to give money to these talking heads. So, yeah, TV is dead. And no, it's not going to be merged with streaming. The future appears to be more likely another form of video on demand. Whether it's going to be YouTube-like, which is a mixture with sometimes ads, sometimes not really. Whether it's going to be something like Nebula, where basically you subscribe to, not to the platform, but to the individual content creator. Maybe it's something in between, such as, you choose to financially support one or two creators, and that's pretty much it. And I don't know. Something will probably have to... Maybe it's something different that hasn't even appeared yet. But the future is not in the form of some TV station for news like CNN, plus some Netflix here and there. And no. Because all of these are not profitable. So even if you like them, they're probably not going to be around for much longer because they're not profitable. Also, TV series are probably going to go away much sooner than expected for the exact same reason. If you've noticed, there aren't any TV series that run for 10 years anymore, or let alone 15 years. It just doesn't happen anymore. Why? Because it's no longer profitable. And in fact, all of them are net loss. And that's why you see so many cancellations. And of course, the nerds on the internet speculate on various things on why that happened. Now, okay, maybe this particular show got canceled because of that reason. But generally speaking, the bulk of cancellations is because money. Nobody watches TV anymore, statistically speaking. And in about 10 years, whatever is left of the generations that grew up on TV exclusively will be dead, or very, very old and confined to various forms of long-term palliative elderly care. So once that happens, it's kind of Koniec as they would say. It's just the way it is. TV is dead. And the sooner we write the death certificate, we sign the death certificate, the better probably for all of us. Now, that doesn't mean the future is bright. In fact, I think the future in terms of entertainment is probably going to look even worse as the quality of entertainment overall continues to deteriorate, and there's no reason to hope that the deterioration will stop or the pace of deterioration will slow down. No, it won't. At least not over the short run. Over the longer run, yeah, probably things will get better as soon as it becomes more profitable to function this way. And I suppose productions like Sound of Freedom are a good, how should I call it, proof of concept? Yeah, proof of concept. Or a proof of concept that maybe that is possible. Although Sound of Freedom has been produced partially by Disney, so, by a subsidiary that eventually ended up owned by Disney. But you get the point. It still had some big money backing, at least at the beginning, until someone decided that they don't like it and tried to shelve it, and you know the rest of the story. Still, we're gonna need a lot more of those to start to say, okay, this is the working model. Until then, it's safe to say that there is no profitable working model for that kind of production. There is no working model for movies, really. I mean, slowly the overall attendance to cinema is also dropping. There is no working model for so many streaming companies. I mean, I suppose if there is to be only one or two, or if you have this fragmentation, but also have all of them united in a single app, and you subscribe to the app, and then they divide the revenue amongst themselves. I suppose that could help, but that won't happen because everyone wants their slice, and the more it fragments, the worse things get, as Ars Technica has correctly noticed. So no streaming, no TV, and increasingly no other form of mass distribution for films. Now that doesn't mean quality works of art aren't being produced. In fact, they are. But nowadays, you're more likely to find quality in places you would expect the least. I mean, usually, I don't want to say necessarily indie film festivals, but definitely lesser known festivals, lesser known film festivals. That's where you can find some good entertainment, or really just as outside of the mainstream as possible, around the counterculture. So I guess what I'm saying is that with the death of TV, we're in for another cultural revolution. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be. I mean, I'm afraid to use the term cultural revolution because of its, maybe I'm not afraid, but I'm definitely reluctant to use this term because of its historical connotations. But definitely we're in for some transformations on the field or in the field of entertainment and news broadcasting and so on and so forth. Not because of any ideological reasons necessarily, although that will contribute, of course, but because of simple economics. None of this is profitable anymore, and the attempts at replacing it have had mixed results. Now, of course, individual creators who've created their own independent operation have had very good success, and I'm very glad for them. But will that be a sustainable model overall? Because let's not forget, most of the successful creators that have created their own model, their own business model to support themselves at the very least, and their teams that help them with editing, broadcasting, and all the rest, will they be, most of them are still niche kind of creators. And that includes Joe Rogan, whose audiences definitely far outpace women's football, but it's still a niche. Admittedly, a gigantic niche, but it's still a niche. Will this model of independent creators, each with their own little business and each with their own little operation, will this model be good enough to cover the majority of the culture? I don't know. And I suppose that's why the talking heads on TV are so frightened, because they seem to believe that they are, which is why they spend so much time attacking independent creators on the internet, starting with Joe Rogan, but not just Joe Rogan. I suppose they think they do, but considering the track record of talking heads on TV on predicting the future, I wouldn't put my money on that. I think the way to replace TV hasn't yet become known to most of us. Maybe someone does know, but the vast majority of the observers definitely don't know. I think that it may even be the case that it hasn't been invented yet, or maybe I should say innovated yet. So yeah, what do you think? Do you think the TV is still alive, or if you agree with me that TV is dead, what is the future? I don't know. Let's discuss. And with all of that said, thank you all for watching, and cheers.